The key idea is that when we said what goes up must come down, that the voltage rise and drops must be equal around any loop, we meant any. It doesn't have to be a closed loop. Any loop from one side of the battery to the other has to have voltage drops equal to the rise in voltage across the battery. Now, let's set the stage here again. I have 4 identical bulbs, all made at the same factory on the same day by the same worker, and they're connected in that way to a 12-volt battery. Now, you know from what we learned about circuits that number 1 is the brightest bulb, and then number 2 is the second brightest bulb, and then 3 and 4 are tied for last. But what if we took out bulb 2 and left the empty socket behind? Instead of a bulb here, there would just be a gaping hole. And the question is, if I were to take a voltmeter and measure the voltage across that gaping hole or that empty socket, what would I read? And your answers, your possible answers, are 12 volts, 9 volts, 8 volts, 6 volts, or 0 volts. Now, I know we're not using clickers. I'm the only person in the room right now. I've got a clicker. But before I vote, I'd like you to think about what your answer would be. What would you vote if you were in the room right now? Well, let's start. I will vote, and I will vote for the class, and I voted C, okay? I voted 8 volts. Now, why is it 8 volts? If you want to learn something about the sun, if you would like to observe the sun, the most important rule is don't look directly at the sun. Look away from the sun. Find some way to learn about the sun without looking at it. You'll blind yourself, okay? The same thing is true when you're trying to find the voltage across an empty socket or a gap, a hole. If it's in a parallel circuit, don't look directly at the sun. Look away from the sun. Look at the other branch that's parallel to it. Because you know you have to have the same voltage across parallel branches. Now, if this is an empty socket, no current can flow down this way. It's broken. That means all the current that goes through 1 has to go through 3 and then through 4. That means 1, 3, and 4 will be in series and equally bright. And if they're equally bright, they've got the same voltage across them, and it's got to add up to 12. So that means this is going to be 4 volts, 4 volts, and 4 volts. Well, that means that the voltage from here to here would be 4 volts plus 4 volts, or 8 volts, from there to there. That means there's 8 volts from here to here. And that would be the voltage across that empty socket. So the answer, the answer is 8 volts. Good. Talk to your neighbor about that. Oh, yes, you can't because you're in California right now. Okay.